So, Dahiru and his family lay there in the darkness in this tiny little tunnel, his two boys, Keb and Ram, and his wife, and they all break down into tears at the same time and hold each other and cry because they're just so stuck in the ground. So, this is the worst things could possibly get for them. And he wiggles his way towards the ground side, the bottom side of the hole, so that if anyone comes up from the underside of the tunnel, any trenchers. And he doesn't know what a trencher is for sure. He's never heard much about trenchers. He just knows that they get along really well with grazers, and grazers give them food, and trenchers help grazers sometimes, and that they're tunnel ground people, but that's all Barnum knows about trenchers. So he sits kind of between his family and the wide world of the underground where trenchers might come from. And they wait. He's thinking about starting to try to dig himself back into the soddy, but he's gonna wait a while. So anyways, they sit for about an hour before they start feeling first differences in the air, and then wafts of smell, and then the occasional shuffle down tunnel. And then after they've been there for maybe an hour and a half, they start hearing clicking sounds. And they're like, clicking? So anyways, pretty soon the clicking sounds get really close, and it's evident that someone's very, very near. And the first trencher comes up, and Barnum feels like a carpety face, like rubbing against his own like leg and arms and face, and like feeling him. And it's a weird, too intimate a feeling to be felt with someone's face. And the face feels like carpet. And he doesn't really know what to make of it. And then he hears all this clicking, and then return clicking back, and finally he feels this carpety hand grab his and tug him, like, come on. And so he takes his wife's hand and says, take each of the son's hands, let's form a chain. And they follow the trencher where he's pulling. And they kind of have to crawl in single file down this tunnel. And it's a real narrow crawl space, but eventually it gets bigger, and they can walk in file, and they can't see anything, but they hear like a whole like social all the way around them, and there are quite a few trenchers around. And then he stops them and opens up this metal circular, it's actually a huge bullet type shape thing. And he pushes Barnum inside. Barnum's like, what do I do? It sounds by the clicks like there are hundreds of trenchers around. And so he's like, yes, sir. And he's completely in the dark. He can blink and open his eyes, and there's no difference. He's totally helpless. And so they put him inside. They start to put him inside this thing, and then they pull him back out. And he goes, and pushes on Barnum's ears. And he does it over and over again until Barnum goes. And so he pushes Barnum back inside the tube, and it closes, and Barnum hears. And he's like, closes his ears, and there's a boom. And there's an explosion, and it pushes him. and he's like battered around inside this tube, and it's like a bullet that gets shot through these tunnels, and it flies for miles and miles and miles, and it finally stops, and he's like, his ears ring, even though he did close his ears, and he's like been sick all over himself, and he's like, ugh. It was a horrible experience. And then another grazer immediately pulls him out of it and goes and pushes on his ears, and he's like, I get it. And they push him back in, and it goes, kum, 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 boom. And they go through this about 20 times before before they stop shooting him through these tunnels. And he's after the 20th time, his ears ring, and he's completely deaf, and he's thrown up anything there ever was in his stomach, and he's stinky, and he's just, he's sick. Totally like fallen down dead sick. And his wife and his 2 sons are right behind him. And a grazer kind of helps him to his feet and, grabs his hand and pulls him. And this new place that they came to is the first place where there's torchlight. And there are these big domed ceilings and flagstone paths, and there's steps. And he and his wife and his 2 sons are kind of pulled down a set of steps, and there's the sound of running water, and there's steam everywhere, and kind of a sulfuric smell. Well, for the first time he gets to see what a trencher looks like, and actually it looks like a man covered with 1970s orange and green carpet. Kind of shaggy in some places and tighter woven in others, but very bright orange and very, very green and very shaggy, very rug covered, and he has great big talons as feet, and kind of big hands that'd be good for like scooping dirt out of the way. And he brings them to like these benches and stuff that are around the steaming bath, and he runs off, kind of motions for them to stay, and comes back with these. They look like rugs, and they're ponchos basically with a hole in the middle, but they're made out of metal, and they're made out of mithril. If you've ever read like The Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit, there's a metal that doesn't get cold and is bulletproof and is a prince's armor type metal. But these ponchos made out of mithril and ropes to tie them. He brings 4 of them, each 2 big ones for him and her, and 2 little ones for their sons, and lays them down, and he jumps in the bath immediately and swims around and rubs himself, and then he tries to pull Barnum in the bath, and Barnum's kind of like, but they kind of get it, and they each get in the bath, and the bath is so hot it like scalds them, turns them just red, and not comfortable at all. And then the trencher looks at their hair and goes, whoa, runs off, tells them to stay, runs off, comes back with a knife, and they're like, oh. He's like, no. And he shaves Barnum's head and the 2 boys' head because they had lice. And he goes to shave Barnum's wife's head. It's just too much for her. She's already sick, and the thought of being bald just doesn't do it for her, and she is upset. He runs off, and he comes back with a bottle of stuff, and he pours it over. He goes, close your eyes. Close your eyes. Close your eyes. And she does, and he rubs the stuff into her hair, and he feels pulse, and he goes, counts to 10. And he uses a pulse to count about 3 or 4 minutes, and then he has her get back in the water and rubs her hair, and her hair's kind of matted after that, but she eventually works it free and gets it clean and stuff like that, but the lice are gone. So they all get in their mithril ponchos, and that's where I'm gonna leave it.